What is going on, gamers? We are live here. XP Share coming back at you after a semi long extended break. It feels like forever. How y'all doing?
Yeah.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome
Let's go.
back. Kyle's back with the
Man.
crew where he belongs.
Yeah, feels good to be back, baby. Let's go.
How was your trip?
It was
With the
really
other
good.
crew.
It was really hot. We spent a week down in Texas, me and my boys, and it was so dumb because before going down there, we saw that there was going to be a week where it was going to be like 105 or 110 over every day that week, but it was supposed to come like it was either a week before or a week after we were there. And so I was like, oh, we'll just narrowly miss it. And we got there and it shifted. And then every day from the day we got there until the exact day we left, it was 105 degrees or more. And then the day we left, it went back down to mid 90s. It was awful. But we did a lot of cool shit. We went to Medieval Times. We went to go see the Austin Football Club at their home stadium. We went to the Retro Games show. I met S-Fan from OTK because he was there.
Ooh.
We bought a bunch of Magic cards, opened them up, played a bunch of video games, hung out. I mean, it was a good-ass time. I was probably fucked up like 6 out of the 7 days we were there. Yeah, It was a good-ass time, brother. It was. I had a good time. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a much needed break, but I am glad to be home. It's always like that, man. You take some time off, but there's something about vacation. Even if you spend the whole thing relaxing, chilling, coming back home is needed. You just need some time away from being away.
Facts, dude.
That is true.
Hell yeah.
What about you, Mike? You went somewhere over the past weekend too, right? Yeah, you went to the
a couple.
You went to the festival, right?
Yeah, it was like in the city. It's a random city called Leggett. It was like 3 hours.
Leggett?
3 hours. Yeah, Leggett.
Well,
it's not really a city. It's more so just the woods, I guess. But it's like 3.5 hours north of here, and but like going on the way there, we ran into this an actual city called Laytonville, and I thought that it was a sundown town. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but I was kind of freaked out when I went through the city. And so we ended up having so we drove through Laytonville, got to the festival, and then realized that we showed up 6.5 hours too early.
Ooh.
Oh my!
So we were sitting outside the gate, like, what are we gonna do? We ended up taking a nap for 2 hours, got bored, drove back to Laytonville, and then found out that Laytonville actually isn't a sundown town; it's a weed town. So we hung out there for a few hours.
Oh shit!
Got some food, met some of like the locals. It's actually a pretty dope town. If you ever want to get away, that's probably a great place to go.
What was this festival you were headed to?
It was so it's a festival that two of my friends they started putting on back in 2019. So at first it was kind of just friends wanting to hang out and listen to music, but then it became a little more popular. So they they basically found a new space which is up in Leggett. It allows for like up to like 125 people.
Oh, really?
And we actually sold out this year, so there were 125 people, and it's all word of mouth. There's no marketing online or public marketing, so there's all friends of friends of friends that
That's
showed
really
up.
dope.
And it was a lot of fun, man. We went hard for 3 days.
Oh yeah, brother. Those are the kind of things that year over year end up turning into the huge festivals, because that's where you build community, man. It's not about money. It's not about capitalism at all. It's about people and connection and the love of the craft, and that's where it's at.
Yep, that's it. You're 100% on the button.
Damn.
100%.
Hell yeah. I do have one more point about Texas, and I'm gonna say it with my chest. Dallas is the worst city that I've ever been to. Dallas is dog shit, brother. Dallas is awful. And I was fighting somebody on this the other day. But the funny thing is, out of all the people that I've talked to about Dallas, only one group of people disagreed with me, and those are the people that lived in Dallas. But like,
of course,
it's awful.
Of course,
it's like it's bad, man. It's fucking gross. It smells. the buildings are old and shitty. Everything's gray or brown and like this
Yep.
weird shit. There's no water anywhere. There's like zero signs of non-capital life. Everyone there is either working or miserable or wanting to fucking kill themselves.
Yes.
It's terrible. Even the scooters in that city suck. We went in and we were like, oh, let's ride some of those bird scooters around. And it was awful. And then we drove by and I saw some dude literally folded over like a piece of fucking fresh printer paper, pants down, shitting on a tree. It was crazy. That was kind of wild. But like, there's nothing redeeming about Dallas. And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm being too harsh. And then I went to Austin, and Austin is like it's like a progressive mecca. It's this wonderful city full of like young progressive people. There's life. There's greenery. It's colorful. The buildings look nice. There's a lot of shit to do. There's a lot of water around. So much better. Dallas, awful. Hate it. I thought nothing could take Kansas City for like the title of worst city I've ever been to, but Dallas does it for sure.
Jesus Christ.
I'd have to agree. I would have to agree 100%. I went to Dallas for a funeral some years ago, and all I remember, me and my dad was looking at each other like, "Why is everyone in such a bad mood here?"
Yup,
Like,
it's
everyone
bad,
that we came across was just look like everyone was having the worst day ever. Like
it's because they are.
This city's
they're in
terrible.
Dallas, brother.
Yeah,
God, dude.
So I'm so glad you said that. I feel the exact same way.
I'm so glad, man. I've been spreading the word. I'm trying to find other people that hate Dallas so I can fucking validate myself.
Can I soapbox? Please.
Oh shit.
So episode 8, everybody, talking about online gaming communities. So we already had this episode. We had part 1 of this episode. Anyone want to give us a little bite-sized summary of what was talked about?
Yeah. Welcome back, Custom. Charlotte, how's it going? Missed you. Hope your
I'm
past
good.
3
How are
weeks
you?
were good.
It's being hot.
It's been hot. I feel
Yeah.
that out here in Arizona. We're melting over here.
Oh, you guys are fucking hurting, man. I've got a friend in Arizona whose AC just busted in his house, and he's had it without a week, or he's been without AC for a week, and he's suffering. He's absolutely suffering right now, and it's fucking awful. Luckily, he makes bank, so he spent a lot of time over in Wrexham watching their soccer games, but his house is like hell on earth, is what he told me.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
I went to South Lake Tahoe for that weekend. I was gone when Mike was gone too, so that temperature change was a little weird as well.
Yeah.
But anyways, so a little bit of a recap. And Mike and Charlotte, feel free to jump in because my memory sucks a little bit. So we went over a little bit about MMOs and the gaming, like really early MMOs, and how those gaming communities kind of started. We compared the rise of forums going into Ventrilo, TeamSpeak, all those voice ones coming back into Discord. We were talking about the debate of what specifically is a gaming community, or does a game dictate their own community kind of thing? So is technically Xbox Live, Call of Duty its own little niche gaming community kind of stuff. We talked about technological advancements coming from that end, especially the voice, social media, all that stuff. And then
communities as well.
That's
like the different communities
Just-
you create and how.
yeah, kind of just like the dynamics of how people's mental has changed over the years with how everything else has changed around it, including but not limited to, of course, the big surge of content creators.
Yeah.
Cloud chasers.
Yeah, I think that's mostly where we left off, talking about clout chasers. We dove a little bit into esports, but I think we're gonna probably start a little bit there because we only got about halfway through it. What else?
What was our consensus about, like, where we were and where we are now? What's the general idea that you guys landed on in your last episode?
For
just about like in terms of communities and how they've changed. I mean, is there a consensus here about whether it's better or worse? I would like to hear what you guys think about that.
we it was more of a like I wouldn't say a relative perspective coming from everybody, depending on what you're talking about, but I think the overall consensus was things have kind of shifted to be not only more secluded and niche, but sometimes more toxic at the same time. But then again, there's not, even though there's more ways to communicate with people, I think we kind of came to the same conclusion that people don't really talk to each other much outside of if you're not like if you don't have the same interest, like people don't really talk much to each other anymore, you know?
Yeah, so I have something I kind of want to bring up that might like jump us into the rest of these things. It's more of a general topic. I feel like we as a society have kind of moved into this spot where we just, like you said, don't talk to people very much. Um, I think back in the day, especially with old school MMOs, I mean, it was a totally different place, a different time. Games used to be social. People used to come together to figure things out. Community forums were amazing. There's a lot of culture there that is sadly now lost because those websites, a lot of them don't exist anymore. Um, a lot of content was made just for the love of the game. And now I think that, as a side point, I think a lot of the content that's getting made is now money focused. Everything's become capital. It's, it's not for the love of it anymore. And the things that are for the love of it don't get pushed out like they should. But more specifically, in terms of how society has changed and how we don't talk to each other even on the street as much. I mean, we've kind of reached this level where everything is like LA, where everyone's kind of, minding their own business. No one gives a shit about what's going on around them. Everyone's looking at their phones. Do you guys think that the time we spent like in lockdown and the things that happened during COVID kind of affected people's general, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Do you think COVID-19 affected someone's willingness to be able to interact with one another? Because I feel like a lot of us receded inwards
I
in
think
real
it's
life, and I feel like some of it might extend into the digital world too. I think it really hurt our desire to connect with people because we kind of receded into ourselves. We became hermits. Everyone got locked inside, and everyone was talking for a while about how we wanted to go out and live our lives and be social again, but I feel like a lot of us are still kind of reeling from that. And do you think that has anything to do with these online communities and these games kind of shifting how they're played and how they exist, or do you think that's a totally separate thing?
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like I feel like when COVID started and people like actually started staying inside, like the quote unquote outgoing people were more secluded inside. I think I want to say that
It's true
like
though.
online kind of like grew, like just online communication in general kind of grew. But now that COVID's, quote unquote ending, whatever thought process you have on
I
that.
don't know about that, man. There's a new fucking variant coming around now again.
Oh god, of course there is.
Yeah.
But even now, like what, 2-3 years later, like we're still, I don't think we have that same interaction or activity that we had at the start of COVID, if that makes sense. But another thing that we were talking about too, on the other side of people just not talking to each other online in general, is I think we also touched on this a little bit a few podcasts ago too, is how much more you're willing to play a video game now, not for the video game, but for playing with somebody else.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
If I could jump in and I can give you a little tiny bit of like academic research that's been on the pandemic.
Absolutely,
So
I'd love that.
obviously So obviously for my PhD, I'm trying to avoid the pandemic because the pandemic is such its own sort of little bubble of research in itself. But
Yep.
from what I've seen of it, is as you're right basically, is that the people who are extroverted kind of like flopped a little bit, and they were like, "What do I do? What is the internet? I've never been on it to talk to anybody. I only go outside." But then everybody who was introverted really thrived. They became more like sociable. So like a lot of the children, because there's a lot of research about kids. When kids went to school online, some of them actively did better in the classes because they weren't having to physically participate. They could put their hand up digitally. They could type it. They didn't have to actually say it out loud. So a lot of kids thrived on that. And then like a bit of personal experiences. I'd finished my undergraduate degree during the pandemic, and I was the only person out of a class of 30 who the teachers actually said that I thrived because I was the only one who had a backup plan that didn't involve being outside.
Yeah. That's good though.
Everybody had like
Yeah.
we had to do like a live performance sort of thing, and everyone was like, "Wow, I'm gonna do this," and I'm gonna set up here with all my cameras, and I'd already decided that I was gonna do something online anyway. So when it all sort of went to pot and everybody couldn't do anything, I was like, "Let me help you with that. Let's see if we can do it online."
Definitely. Yeah. I'll say, man, I was definitely one of those people who was affected. As like I consider myself more extrovert than introvert. And when the pandemic happened, and first of all, at the beginning of the pandemic, I moved to Oakland just so I could be closer to the bar that I was DJing at on a weekly basis.
Yo,
Like that was the whole reason why I moved.
I bet that messed some shit up for you, man.
Oh, 100%. And then like a week after I moved, I'm like everything shut down. So I was like, oh, so I guess I'm just in the house now. But once, a year and a half or so later, once everything was starting to kind of open up, yeah, there were days where I would normally go, yeah, let's go out, and I'm like, I'm chilling.
Yeah, you
And
started
I
dial experience.
I started being okay with just being in the house.
Yeah. Dude,
So
that fucked me up so bad. So this is gonna full circle, I promise. So when COVID happened, stayed inside all the time. It was like a fucking sunspot that just landed on my forehead. It was like God was speaking to me. I was like, listen, I have no desire to go outside anyway. I now have an excuse. I'm gonna stay inside. Because I was already in the thick of streaming like every day. Like it happened right like almost a year after I started streaming, a year after I'd spent every day, like literally almost every day in a year streaming for at least 6 hours a night. And I was just invested, and that was unhealthy in itself. But so I stayed inside. I embraced my introvert, and I didn't do any thinking about what drawbacks that would have for me as a person. And I learned a lot about that, and I'm still learning a lot about that in, this process of recovery post lockdown, post COVID.
Sure.
And one of the things that I realized in locking myself up like this is having social experiences online is not a one-to-one like experience. It's not, you don't gain as much online as you do from interacting with people in person. It's different. And social skills, I have found out, are something that you have to train like a muscle. It's something that you have to get out there, you have to experience, otherwise they will atrophy. They will become less strong. And so at the end of that period, when I finally I got a new job that was not working from home, and I had to leave the house and I had to go interact with people, I felt like the biggest hermit of all time. Like even basic interactions with people made me super anxious. And I was like, what is wrong with me? I've always kind of dealt with social anxiety a little bit, but it's never been this bad until I realized I just had to get out there. And the more I talked to people, the more I interacted, the more I kind of trained that muscle. I got better at it again. And now I'm somewhere in between where I was and where I fucking want to be. But it's definitely, there are repercussions to having to sit inside for so long, whether you intend for them to be or not. And I think one thing in terms of online communities that we are going to see moving forward is not only that the adults that were stuck inside are going to be different online as we interact with each other, But as we see these kids come up online, we're seeing a lot of issues with kids in online communities being these, little brats. They're just ruining shit all over the place. And I think that the repercussions of keeping our youth outside of a social public system like a school, we're going to continue to feel for the coming years, because it's such a big mental change, and those kids are kids. They don't understand the repercussions of what happened. I mean, we barely understand the repercussions of what happened to them.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
feel like those kids are going to have such a monumental effect on how our online communities exist, especially as they grow up. We don't know how that's going to continue to manifest itself as they get older. They might end up in a totally different social place than us. And, it might be really hard to acclimate to that. I don't know. It's something I've thought about. Like, there are a lot of really annoying kids. And I think a lot of that annoyingness comes from this lack of social ability, of this, total upending of their lives, and, fucking ruining their social aspects. I don't know.
Well, it also doesn't help that a lot of kids nowadays are glued to a fucking technological device, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think
know.
that's going to slow down anytime soon. I think that's going to keep getting
Mm-mm.
worse. I think
Oh,
COVID
absolutely.
definitely like activated the fast track on some of that and stuck a lot of people inside, and then they were required to be on the computer to do everything at school as opposed to just parts of it. They couldn't go outside. It reinforced all that, and we have so many things like technology wise, which is another thing that we are going to struggle to understand the consequences of in the next decade, of putting an iPad in front of a fucking 2-year-old, man. They're sitting there watching YouTube Kids, racking up revenue for some fucking predator on the internet. And it's like, how does that shape your brain?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the guy that comes in and says that's necessarily a bad thing. I think there are benefits, perhaps, to, a lifestyle like that, to being raised on technology from an early age. I'm not sure we have the infrastructure to, or the understanding to really care for those people and to make sure that they have optimal growth. But there's a lot there, man. It's complicated. We're in a new era right now. I think looking at the world now as compared to, a decade ago, 2 decades ago, the further away you get, you realize we've come a really long fucking way, even in the last couple years. I mean,
Absolutely.
I would go out on a limb and say this world pre-COVID is almost entirely different than it was post-COVID. There is so much
Absolutely.
different about my life that I would imagine can be extrapolated to a general population. The world is a different place, and it's going to continue to move that way. And I think that effect on our communities is very understated. I think there's a lot that we don't understand and that we're going to struggle to understand, but
Well, it's actually good you kind of ended on that too, because Charlotte has some actual survey documentation that I'm sure she would love to share.
Yeah. So as you guys know, when we left off on the last podcast, I left a little link to a survey that's going to be part of my PhD research, and please do feel free to keep filling it in. I'm going to keep it open till the end of September. But what I did is for this one is I've tried to collate a couple of the general themes that people seem to be kind of bringing up. So what the main ones are, the 6 points. So we have 2 positive ones, that people found it easier to interact online than they did in real life. That seems to be like a big thing, one of the bigger positives of being part of a community.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of talk about introversion, and I think that also can kind of be mirrored with the idea of neurodivergency as well. I think that's something that I didn't want to particularly put in the research, but I think a lot of people who have anxiety, depression, any sort of mental health seem to do better online. They seem to
I can vouch
be
for
able
that.
to sort of they seem to work through their feelings and their emotions, especially a lot as also lifestyle choices. So people who want to maybe portray a different gender online, they seem to do much better with it, being able to kind of have like a bridge between having to physically go out and tell people to just sort of like pretending to be someone else online and seeing how that fits.
Yeah, makes sense.
Is that like in a Google form? Because it might help if you post it in the chat. That way people can pop in and maybe fill it out. Get
Yeah,
more
let me
responses.
go find the link because I made an announcement a while ago. I forgot to repost it.
Yeah. I know we have a
can
couple
copy the
people.
link then, if you want. I just don't know where I posted, but I can send you the link again. I'll post it just in DMs. But there's another link.
There we go. Perfect.
Do we have link protection on in this channel?
Um,
I'm gonna try.
let's-
Boom. Oh nope. Let's go. Okay.
Nope.
Chat. If you guys could go fill that out. Oh, I pasted it twice. Oops. If you guys could go fill that out, it'd be great.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get just shy of 100 responses, which is quite a lot. But I think any help is really helpful, and maybe once I've kind of finished it all, I'd love to kind of like send you guys I'm doing a video series, all these things. I think it's going to be helpful. I hope, you know.
Yeah, I
yeah,
want to see
so-
everything you have on this. Like, I'm excited to see what data you found. Basically, I want to read your whole thing. I want to read your dissertation, dude.
JD,
it's going to be
you're
100,000 words. Are you ready for that?
I am absolutely ready.
JD's embracing his inner
100,000.
scientist. He's ready. He's like, I am intrigued by your data.
But yeah, if people want to be more involved than just a survey, I'm doing interviews after September where basically I just want to hear people's personal stories about being in online communities, whether that's good or bad. And that's going to kind of be an extra additional part as well. So if anybody's interested in that as well, and obviously I can share the videos and stuff. We're going to do some cool things, I hope, with them.
Yeah. Let me know when you launch that. I'll post that around as well and get you some more people.
Oh yeah, I say I've left like a contact bit at the bottom of the survey, and I'm gonna get in contact with people at the end of September. If they left anything for me to speak to them. Well, it's gonna probably take me a while to make all the videos, but I'm hoping to be done maybe by the start of next year. All going well.
Of course.
Um,
As far as the question is helping somebody on a game as a way to bond as the same as changing a tire today. I think we kind of touched on that in the beginning too with what Kyle was saying. It's what do you guys think? Like I personally think like if you're coming as like a stranger kind of perspective, like you're helping some random person change their tire, as in you're helping some random person in their way through a game, I think honestly nowadays I'd say yeah, there's a little more of a connection there. Right?
I feel like it's probably easier to create a connection. I think we were having a discussion before about how it's easier to build a friendship if you're talking to someone in person and you're kind of just having small talk. It can kind of become a little stale at some point, and you kind of just like, all right, well, goodbye, stranger, and conversation's over. Whereas online, those conversations can go on forever. And
Yeah.
even if it does become stale, it's not as awkward. It's not like you're like looking that person in the face. Maybe there's something. Maybe you're doing something that has got you distracted, or both of you are playing a game or whatever. It's just it's more opportunity to kind of fill that dead space.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
Makes sense.
I think you're completely right about the whole like if I'm just picturing, you're stranded on a motorway and you need just tire changing, someone might come up and help you, and you might have a bit more of a deeper feeling about that. You might be like, wow, I can't believe some strangers come and help me. Well, I don't think you'd kind of have that deepness, I'm gonna call it. It's probably the wrong word. When it came to someone helping on the game, you'd be like, oh, well, thanks, man. Thanks for helping me out. But then like once they've changed the tire, it would be separate ways. unless it was like, oh my god, I've met the love of my life. You know, people have had that. Sure.
True, true.
I think it's pretty rare. Where I think online, once you've kind of had that help, you might be like, can I keep in touch with you? You know, can we maybe do this again?
Yeah.
And I think it's that conversation starter.
I found myself enjoying. I mean, I tend to gravitate towards someone who can teach me something, but also not have an ego about it. So I guess maybe the real answer is it depends on that person's ego, right? Because if you're giving constructive criticism about something and the other person that you're giving it to can take it as such, then it's fine. Whereas if it's like, hey, look, guys, I'm better than you. All right, so here's what you need to do. Okay, it's just communicate. Communication is a two-way street, right? If you know how to navigate those waters properly, it's pretty difficult to not to not find and keep friends. I mean, I had Nico for an example. I mean, people naturally gravitate towards this guy because he's always so kind about everything. It's like, oh no, it's cool. I got feedback. You give me feedback. It's all good, man. At the end of the day, like he always has a positive attitude towards all that. So people will gravitate towards him because of that. Even if he's telling you next time do this or next time try it that way, I'm sure the feedback may not necessarily work, but the way that he's delivering it is undeniable. He's nice about it.
Yeah.
Like to Nebers in chat, going on to back to the question, not always, but sometimes yes, more on that connection can even grow stronger outside of games. So it's like, I think it's very situational. Again, like Charlotte said, you can meet the fucking love of your life, change an entire kind of shit. But to your point, Juice, about like giving people advice and quote unquote helping with game, like there is that ego factor. There is those people who are like, oh, if you do it this way, this is the correct way, this is, and then there's always those, and then there's always that set of people who are like, I don't want to hear your advice, I don't want to hear what you have to say, just let me play and figure out the game for myself. So it's a different world. And I think that perfectly segues over into the whole competitive gaming and esports kind of sense of like, especially when it comes to coaches nowadays too. It's like, I know so many people who still say that coaches for esports teams like are completely irrelevant, and it's just like, no. Like, it's a competitive environment. You need someone there analyzing everybody else outside of the current state of the game. So there's just that there's always going to be a mental disconnect between somebody, but the generalization of whether or not you're going to have a better interaction on the outside helping somebody change a tire versus introverted helping somebody play a game, I think it's completely relative to the situation. Because you're not going to like, you're not exactly going to, ask a stranger on the internet like, hey, what, like, unless you're talking to like a content creator that you want to interact with or something, you're not going to talk to somebody on Reddit and post something like, hey, how do I do this in a certain game, unless you're really stuck. Versus, again, changing a tire, which is kind of just ad hoc. Oh, that guy's on the side of the road, I'm going to help him, kind of thing.
Has anyone in here actually stopped and like helped a stranger change their tire?
I have
no.
I
changed my own
help
tire.
a lot of old ladies.
Old ladies are fine. I
I'm
feel
more
like
of a. Oh,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I usually walk old ladies like across like rooms when they're a bit slower and they're worried someone's gonna bump into them. I've done that quite a lot. I think I've turned into that sort of person. My mom's like, I can't believe you just walking this woman like across like a whole shopping mall.
If I didn't live in the United States, I think it might be different. But I always have this like weird innate fear when I see someone like on the side of the road where I'm like, you know what? If I get out to help them, there's probably about a 30% chance that they end up murdering me or robbing me, and
Oh
it's
gosh.
fake or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm on my way to work. I'm not gonna be late. Let's just keep moving.
It's
I
the
think
cop
that's another
shop.
part of I think that's another part of the community shit that's just like really hard to keep up with is distrust of fellow human beings. I think at least in the United States, in terms of like our political landscape and the way that we're moving as a society, I think a lot of people have become distrustful of people outside their normal circles, which has had impacts on a lot of different things. I feel like there's a lot of anger online because of that. There's a lot of anger in real life, but it's easier to express online because you're not connected to your, your physical presence, your identity in real life. And I feel
It's
like a lot of people are hesitant to connect with one another because they've been okay with what they've had for so long. Um, and I think that manifests itself in a lot of different ways. That it made shit like meeting people and dating hard. It makes chatting with people in online communities a little bit harder, and people are just angry. I think that
It's actually
distrust
really
is
funny
huge.
that you bring that up because one of my buddies who has been playing Call of Duty with one of his friends for a long time, probably 7+ years, kind of like me and Juice. Apparently, he just found out that his friend's sort of rich on his aspect, and
Oh shit!
his buddy basically said that he would give him money to build a new computer. And me and my other friend are kind of we were talking to him about it, and my buddy was just coming from the aspect of, I'm not used to people being nice and shit. He's probably gonna try to murder you or something. Like he wants some kind of value for what he's gonna give you. Like he's coming from the aspect of, again, it's weird that people are being nice, that he wants to give you this money to just out of the goodness of his heart. Like that's where people are
Mm,
at nowadays,
Yeah,
which is really sad, honestly.
damn. Yeah.
so sad.
I mean, there's really so much. I feel like we could go off in another XP share tangent discussing this because just the personalities of gamers. I mean, and people in general, sure, but we're speaking from our perspective, right? So there's a butt ton of things we can say, to that degree. That'll just branch off into 17 other subjects.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we'll be talking about quantum physics, wondering how we got there.
Damn, bro. Bro, I went to go see Oppenheimer and I walked out of that fucking theater thinking, you know what? I'm gonna go buy a physics textbook. I'm gonna learn a bunch of shit that I forgot in my AP physics classes, and I'm gonna start studying quantum physics, and I'm gonna be so smart, and then I haven't done any of that. Anyway,
So
unrelated.
one point we have on our little note sheet too, is the uh lack of a better term, the upcoming of cross-platform and cross-community kind of interactions. How do you guys think that's impacted just those communities in general? People are now able to play Xbox and PlayStation together, PC and console. You know, again, more people are talking to each other in that aspect, but is
Yeah.
it is it a positive thing at the end of the day?
Yes. 100%.
I
It
think
should have
it's a
happened sooner.
true. It should
It should have
have.
happened sooner.
I think it's a positive thing, but one thing that I have noticed in my personal like anecdotal experience is that I feel like I've never seen an increase in like social interaction because of something like that. You know, you're not going to see that kind of stuff in like Call of Duty because that shit's toxic and it's always going to be toxic, but I feel like I just I've seen it in a lot of places, but I haven't seen any like increase of social activity because of it, you know? I feel like it's just when people look at that, the thought that they have isn't that, oh, more people to meet. It's that, oh, I can fill my lobbies easier because there's more people to play with and or shit on.
True.
Like that's always the thought. That's an interesting thing. You would think that people would get excited at the social aspects, but that's not what I've seen or even thought about really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of it too.
I always say that I've always said that like the success of Modern Warfare in 2019 with Warzone going cross platform, I think was huge, huge, because whenever I would play Modern Warfare 2019, like just if I'm playing pubs, you can see like the icons to see either Xbox, PlayStation, or PC,
Yep.
and you almost always will see a combination of the two, especially on Call of Duty.
Yep.
But then I thought to myself, with how popular Blackout was on console and having it die on PC pretty fast, it's interesting to think about how much more popular Call of Duty could have become earlier if only Blackout were cross plat as well.
Yeah.
True.
I mean,
It
it can keep
that,
games alive for sure.
that game was great in my opinion, and so I think that there's definitely positives to it. I do also love the whole like PC master race argument that keeps happening as well. I love how before crossplay was a thing, PC players swore that they would scrape console players all like off the ground like fucking old gum, and then the
Bro,
second,
I do though. That's the thing. I do.
yeah, I love
I
those
scrape those
arguments,
Xbox,
bro.
PlayStation kids, man. That you know what? I don't care what game it is. Like, have fun using your two little joysticks, brother. I got full 6 degrees of freedom. Fucking, I'll snap on your head, take your ass out, and send you to bed.
Yeah, there we
Fuck
go.
it.
It's spam crouch on your face. Let's get it. Yeah, no, I love that argument. I think it keeps things fresh.
Yeah.
You got to have that healthy that healthy banter.
I got a quick aside for you guys that we can talk about real quick. So there's been a lot of discussion in the esports scenes about the role of villains in these communities. There's like a lot of so back in the day we used to have a lot of people specifically in like the league esports community where we would have villains that would trash talk a lot, that would shit on people, would BM all the time, and it would create these narratives where there was a villain and the villain would be at in danger of getting toppled, and it created all these interesting narratives. How do you guys feel about this idea of like this villain, this instigator in communities like that? Do you think that's a helpful thing, or do you think that they'd be better off without it? Because we've seen a lot of games these days move in a way that is, for lack of a better term, like more politically correct. There's a lot of games where you can't teabag people because that's bad sportsmanship. Sportsmanship in itself has grown to be such this encompassing term. Do you guys think that's impactful in a good way on these communities? Is that something that we need, or more general, is toxicity something that has a place in certain ways, or should that just be totally removed? I mean, how does that affect these communities, you think?
I don't know if it's just me, but doesn't that whole sort of like villain narrative remind you a bit of like WWE wrestling?
Yeah, a little bit.
There's always a
Yeah.
hero and there's always a villain.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing. I mean, in terms of like
And
the
that
greatest
works.
stories ever told, you need a villain in order for there to be a hero, right? To
Yeah.
to create personalities and lift people up. I feel like they're necessary, but a lot of people don't take to those people, and a lot of people hate the idea of a villain existing and treating them in a bad way. And I don't know. There's definitely a bunch of takes online about it, and it's something that I've kind of been seeing in passing, and I'm curious to see what
I
everyone
think
here
that
thinks about it.
I think that's more of as far as being against it. I think that's more of a societal thing. How we're shifting. Well, I say a societal thing, but it's more like it's more an online community thing
Like a
that
terminally
people,
online thing, yeah.
yeah, where people are trying to be more inclusive and trying to kind of shut out that whole that whole general bubble of toxicity, whereas
Yeah.
yeah, it's just it it's kind of weird when you think about it, how different you think. There's one hand like the entirety of society, and then there's its own bubble of online communities that are trying to be, that again are trying to push away this whole toxicity vibe, trying to, you know I'm trying to be a good person kind of thing, where it seems like the whole other end of society is like, oh yeah, it's just collapsing around us, like we're in our own bubble and society is just going downhill.
Yeah. Juice, what are you thinking?
I'm wondering if I say what I want to say.
Dude,
Right
I know
now.
exactly what you're gonna say, and I think I might agree with you. Preach it. Go off.
Listen, Justin and I, back in college, played a lot of Call of Duty,
And
Modern
dude, it
Warfare,
rots brains. I know.
Modern
We're all in the
Warfare
same spot.
2. Man, it was a fucking blast. Listen, that competition, that trash talk, you sometimes need that to kind of fire up your system, especially if you consider yourself a competitive person. If you're someone who played sports at any point, those things don't really get to you. Now, I get it. A lot of gamers don't play sports, so therefore, like, when you're not used to someone saying the things that people say online, I get it. It can be a little shocking at first. But I think that, like, taking it to the level of it's killing online gaming, or we need to, yes, in any and everything that we do, there's always someone who takes things too far.
Yes.
That's in Christianity. There are leaders who take things too far.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean we shut
there's
down
bounds, right?
religion, right? Yeah, exactly. So therefore, I think that, like, um there is a healthy amount of everything that we should be willing to take, just to understand just how the cookie crumbles,
Yeah.
and you move on.
I agree. And coming back to that idea, like in a Call of Duty lobby, someone comes in and someone insults you, or hits you with an insult to your mom or some shit. You know what they do. That right there is an isolated hero villain complex. You get into that situation where you're like, that guy's a villain, and if you manage to outplay that guy and shit on him, that's a narrative. That's something that affects you, and in some instances, the whole lobby, right? And you get into this thing, and it enhances the experience. There's almost no better feeling than shitting on a guy like that in Call of Duty. You shit all over his life. You send him to bed, get him to log off. Which it's a really interesting kind of thing here, because toxicity, I feel like, has a place, especially in gaming, and I feel like it's important in some ways, but I also feel like it's when people take it too far, it's rough. It's hard to find the line for some people, I guess,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's hard to manage.
Mhm.
I don't know, man. Like,
Yeah, there
it's
definitely are people who will take it too far.
well, and
You
the
know,
other thing is, I feel like so I'm all about progressive, politics. I'm super left leaning. I think identity politics are super important. I think that anything we can do to make people happier or more comfortable is going to be a good thing. But I also feel like in some instances, in some corners of the internet, people are becoming a little soft. I think that there are
yeah,
certain things that we should be able to handle or shrug off that we can't. And I think that's due to a bunch of outside things, but I think it's starting to seep into some of our communities, and it's starting to ruin some things that were once upon a time great, that, just a decade ago we were able to handle and deal with, and no one cared. Like, some villain in a lobby saying some dumb shit was like, okay, well, that dude's an idiot. I'm gonna shit on him, whatever, you know. And I don't know, man. It's a
yeah.
hard topic to talk on.
it it is. Yeah, it's really hard to bring up, especially when you support that side of things as well.
Yeah,
But I do agree, like especially when COVID started too. Yeah, we like at least coming from the online introverted perspective, like people have become a lot softer,
Yeah.
generally. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I mean,
Yeah, and I mean
yeah,
there are some instances where it makes total sense, right? Like there's been a big movement lately to remove words from everyone's vocabularies that
Sure.
people used, a decade, 2 decades ago, all the time as part of their, regular chat. And I think that's good. I think there's a lot of words that exist purely to hurt people, and I don't think those words need to exist. I don't think we need to use them. Um, but there's a lot of other stuff that I'm like, really, this almost seems like manufactured outrage or virtue signaling or some effect of being terminally online that's literally rotting your brain. I don't get it, man. And I feel like it's definitely ruining a big part of our communities, of our, narratives in some of these games that we really love. And it's I fear that we are losing a part of some of these things that we may never get back. Like
yeah, yeah.
I think there's a good chance that kids these days will never get to experience the glory of multiplayer gaming that we got to experience just a couple years ago.
Oh yeah.
And maybe that's the boomer in me talking, but
Well, I mean, coming from that aspect of toxicity, like it's definitely there's like name a game that doesn't have a ban system for you, saying some sort of slur right
yeah,
now,
Sure. Sure.
um, name a game that doesn't do voice recording, like
that
a
shit.
popular AAA game,
I
you know.
kind of hate that because it's like, I mean, on one hand, yes, I absolutely use it to ban the dumb fucking 11-year-olds that come into a lobby and start screaming the N-word into their microphone. But on
Sure.
the other hand, like that is a huge like privacy concern. I don't want to be like monitored for all this. And the dumb thing is there are some
Yeah.
games that have those systems that will ban you for the dumbest shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
there used to be a time in the transitional period between where we were and where we are where the games would be like, "Hey, there is a safe place for trash talk and it's this." And it was like it was usually lame shit, but it was them acknowledging like, "Hey, we get it. You can be a little toxic. It's part of the game, it's part of the experience. It's important." But now it feels like we're moving in this area where you can't say anything bad to anybody lest you get removed from a game and lose all the money you've spent on it and all the time and effort. And it's like I feel like in defense of some of these genuinely good ideas, we're moving too far. Where we're moving the goalpost little by little until eventually it's so far gone that all of the little things that make things, like these games special might get lost. But the question that I have to follow up with that is there are some things that we gain from that too. It's easier for some people to take part in these communities when there is no toxicity like that. Some people legitimately prefer it that way. Is the trade-off worth it? And what does that entail?
I mean, if I could just make a point, like,
Yeah.
as I'm assuming the only resident lady here, I think sometimes it's a little bit harder for especially like multiplayer games, and I've done a lot of interviews and stuff and talked to a lot of women on this. And if you play as a woman, as a man, usually people don't mess with you. But when a lot of women like have to have male avatars online because they feel like they're gonna get harassed otherwise. Because they're like,
Mhm.
as soon as they hear a woman's voice, it's like, we're just gonna trash talk you until you leave.
I hate that.
Yeah,
And I
that's
I
think,
really
and
do
I
resent
think,
that.
and I think that's kind of because obviously a lot of my past feature was a lot on a female-led community, and the toxicity is still there. Girls are just as horrible as boys.
Yeah.
But I think what makes it so difficult is that, as you say, it's those people overreaching that line. It's like it's past
Yeah.
competitiveness. It's personal.
mhm.
So
It's
yeah.
uh, and that again that also goes with uh the whole niche communities nowadays, which again isn't inherently a bad thing, but a lot of people don't hang out much anymore. It's discords of 1 to 5 people in a chat every now and then, and that's it. They won't reach out, communicate with anybody else, kind of,
Yeah.
because they're in that bubble that makes them feel comfortable, which
Yeah.
again isn't a bad thing, but
Yeah.
it's where we went from a whole trash talking online big bubble community era where everybody was just like, hey, I'm just here to play games. If you want to shit talk, I'll shit talk you back, to where I'm just gonna sit in my bubble and play with my friends, kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And literally
safer.
mute the lobby every time I go in.
Yep. Well, so one
you
thing
know-
that. Oh wait, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that when it comes to toxicity in an online community, it's it's weird how some people can just kind of tell that you're black the second that you enter a lobby, and the second that happens, it's hey, are you black? And I was like, how did this guy know? Like,
Dude.
and then from there it's just over.
The worst part is like what kills me is that anyone that is like saying shit like that is white. Isn't that fucked up?
It's well, I'm not at that point. I'm not even concerned about someone's race. I'm just like, here we go. All right,
But it drives
what's
me
up?
mad realizing that, because it's like every time that shit happens, it's a little like 12-year-old white boy. And it's
Yeah,
like
100%.
or it's some older white guy that never grew out of the 12-year-old white boy phase. And I don't want to be like racist here. I know that like, connotations, you can't be racist to white people, whatever. That's not a conversation that's relevant here. But like it drives me nuts because there's a legitimate conversation there to be had about like, is a lot of that terrorizing that's happening there to people of color because of like weird white people on the internet? Is that a thing? Like, is that a fucking problem?
It's because there's it's because there's no repercussion.
Yeah, well, it's not connected
there's no
to their,
consequence.
exactly, right? And so,
there's no
but the thing is that brings an interesting conversation up that might not be relevant for XP share, but that might be relevant for another discussion somewhere else down the road. Is why when given this outlet on the internet that's not connected to your face, your name, your identity, why do all these white people suddenly become racist when in real life they'd never do that? There's this like, is it for the love of toxicity? Is it just to troll people, or is it like something bigger? Like, is there this latent idea that's in these people that like they just fucking they hide? I don't know, man. It drives me nuts thinking about it.
I think at the end of the day, the few people who are the ones that take it too far are the ones that are having a shit time in their own life in general.
Yeah, man.
It's
You can
like-
always tell who gets stuffed in lockers for a living,
Yeah,
You can always tell.
exactly.
You know what
So-
though? If they're doing that shit in their free time, maybe they should be shoved in a fucking locker. That's all. I fuck
no,
kids.
I mean that's
Honestly, I think bullying is formative, and I think that we should do it more.
that's what I mean.
Bully
It's
the
like
bullies.
it's like they can't do that shit physically, so they take it out all online because I can have an outlet to cross this line of toxicity without any repercussion, and then go to school the next day and get a fucking swirly or some shit,
Yeah, shove that kid in the locker.
Nobody fucking does that anymore, but still, it's like,
Yeah.
There's always like a great example of like when people have very extreme views and things like that is and I won't mention any names, but obviously a very certain political party has a very strong presence online, especially for the US. Obviously, I can't say it for us. And but then when they have like rallies and things like that, there's less and less people physically going there, and I think it's because it's easier to be this horrible person online than it is to be in person. Because if you're in a room full of people who don't believe the same as you, there's going to be physical repercussions. I won't say anything violent, but maybe.
It's going to be violent, and I'm going to be the one doing it.
Maybe.
Like if there's a Nazi in my vicinity spreading Nazi shit, it's always ethical to punch a Nazi, and that's where I'll stand. Racists as well. It's always okay to punch a racist, but like it drives me crazy, and I think a part of it might be exacerbated by some of the content creators we have these days. To pivot into another idea we kind of have laid out here, I think a lot of the biggest content creators these days are, for one reason or another, and I could go into whole spiel about how this is driven by capitalism and by political grifting and shit like that. But we've got a lot of creators that spread hate and that spread just general toxicity and a disgusting way of living to young people or to impressionable people, not just in the U.S. but very much so in the U.S. But all over the world. We have people like, I'm gonna fucking name and shame. I don't care. Like XQC, Aiden Ross, Trainwrecks. You've got like FouseyTube, fucking Rice Gum. You've got the Paul brothers. You've got Drama Alert. I mean, all these people that it Andrew Tate. I mean, fucking gross. What a fucking loser. But they're gaining traction on the internet, right? And I think that their existence and their weird, hateful rhetoric has kind of changed how a lot of people interact online. It takes one look at Twitter and the blue checks that are under the replies of every hit tweet to realize something's fucking wrong. Something's awfully wrong. I think it is, at least in big part, because of these people. And I think a part of it is like, people want to be different. They want to be trolls. They want to do things that like focus on them. It's a very selfish way of thinking, but I think another part of it is just when you get people preaching things like that, then you pull people out of the woodwork that originally wouldn't have said that, but we're like, oh, but if he's saying that, that means I can agree with it.
Exactly.
And I won't be by myself.
Exactly. I was just, I was just going to touch on that.
Yeah.
It's you're behind a computer. You don't have any repercussions, unless, I mean, come on, guys. All your shit's public. If you live in a house, if you have an ID, your records are public. Somebody can get those. It's not that hard. Like it took a good 10, 20 seconds for somebody in a CSGO lobby to find my old ass MySpace and say, "Hey, what's up, Justin? What's going on?"
Bro, what do you mean you've got Paramore as your fucking #1 listed artist on this page, you fucking loser?
We will have no bad talk about Paramore.
Okay, I love Paramore.
I love me some Haley.
I'm just gonna say though, their new album was mid.
Okay.
That's it. I've moved on to Paramore
Riot,
sound alike bands. The new I can't do the new album. I don't know. Maybe I'm just uncultured. Maybe I'm just swine. But doesn't matter. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
I think the thing that worries me about like the whole, and I hate to say his name, Andrew Tate thing, and like everybody toxic masculinity and all that, is I've heard little kids like being like, well, women are just objects. Or like what was the other one? And I heard a kid physically say it as I was walking past me, but he was just like, well, men are like alphas, we all should be better. And I'm like, oh my god, this is like where it begins, isn't it? And I think as much as I worry about the little things, like I worry about like when my cousins are online, I'm like, they're gonna have a bad image of their bodies, they're gonna see things that are gonna make them feel bad about themselves. But then I think, oh my god, there's these horrible people, and they're gonna tell them things and they're gonna believe it.
Yeah.
Because they have nothing else.
I think
if I can make the statement right here real quick, I'll make this quick. In the future, it is going to be more important now more than ever for parents to do their jobs.
Yep.
For parents to really show the fuck up and teach their kids right and wrong, good and bad, man. Because it's so easy to get access to the information that people have nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to hear 18 different perspectives and choose one and just ride that shit till the wheels fall off. So parents out there, man, your job become even tougher. Tougher.
And
dude.
Again, as a couple, like we're like an hour and 5 right now, so like a couple closing things.
Part
is
3
like,
episode.
Definitely 100%. We're gonna have to revisit this like September, October-ish when
I think we could do a whole episode on what comes next. Like I think I would really like to talk about this idea of specifically online communities that are like very persistent, like something like VR chat, right? Where you have people that show up. I was just in there the other night and we went to bars, clubs, and there are people for real sitting in there drinking in real life in VR, sitting up at a bar, chatting with each other, dancing. I mean, it's essentially just like if you went there in real life, but there's a fucking like furry in the corner, and like some dude is dressed up as Mario over there twerking, under the spotlight. It's amazing, honestly. I love it. But the thing is we've seen a lot of like films and fiction that have talked about this potential future of us giving up our physicality to exist in like a virtual world. And seeing VR chat in the moment, it almost feels like we're very close to something like that. Obviously we aren't, we're a long way from something like that, but it is a potential future, especially with the way things are going, where, things outside of a virtual world are getting increasingly more dire. And I would be interested to talk about that, and especially to hear Charlotte's input on, some of the potential upsides and downsides to something like that. Because, I mean, it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows.
No.
I
I
mean,
could.
if it's okay with you, Kyle, I think you should definitely join me on some of the interviews because I'd love to do them in VR chat, and maybe
Yeah.
we could get a few like cool vox pops and go a club. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I'd be down. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
I
I'd
could
be
talk
down
about
to
this
talk about that.
all day and every day.
Yeah.
Just keep asking me back, and I'll be back. I can't say more.
Honestly, let's do a special VR chat episode where we do an episode in VR. Everyone
Oh,
shows
yeah.
up.
That would be
Oh
sick.
yeah, I can do
Hell
that.
yeah. And then that's just the stream. We're in VR sitting in a little room talking. That'd be sick.
That actually wouldn't be a bad idea just for kind of like a whole setting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, yeah, even just outside of something like this, that'd be cool. But yeah, I think we should do that.
We should definitely continue this as per usual. I think there's just way too much. There's so much to talk about with where we're at now, where it's going, what's going to happen, especially how content creation is going to start shaping things again with kids on technologies, the new generation, VR chat. I actually have a buddy who's literally in VR chat every day. He's part of
Dude,
a
who is it?
Discord. Chicken.
Yep, I fucking
Yep.
knew it. I see
Yep.
it. I see his ass in VR
Yep.
chat on Steam all the time, and I'm like, at first my thought was, holy fuck, how do you stay in VR chat like that? But when I went in it the other night and I saw some of those rooms and those communities, I thought that game was gonna be dead, and it's popping, man. And like,
Oh, it's so popping.
it's fucking insane. You look
Well-
at it and you're like, I could see people like living in here. I mean, you could
Yeah.
have a whole social life in there. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to be, under threat by anybody. You just show up. You're like, oh, I'm gonna go hang out at the Super Kmart, and they've got people in there staffed running the fucking Kmart.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna go to a club or a bar, and there's real ass people in there doing exactly the same shit they'd be doing at a bar. It's fucking, it's insane, man. And I could 100% see that happening. And then
The mini games you can play?
recontextualized seeing chicken on there so much. I'm like, I get it
Yeah.
now. I do. I don't know if I would do it. I think that there's still some issues before I would invest heavily in an idea like that we can talk about in the future episode we do. But I get it. I
Yeah.
100% get it.
So apparently he's part of a whole Discord like VR chat community, and he just recently was asked by one of the admins to basically like head their events, kind of like
Oh, really?
basically like help him out with that too. So he's
That's cool.
he's getting really big into it. So
Yeah.
Nice.
there's definitely a community there. Which
Dude, the second we get full dive VR where I put a headset on, lay down in my bed, and I'm there in the world, I'll never leave. I'll never leave,
Absolutely.
man. Never ever.
and that's almost a scary idea too, right?
Yep.
It's
Well, the thing
it's
is
where we're
like,
going.
It's scary to think about for sure, but with the way that our world is working, right now there's a lot of like beautiful shit to experience in the world for sure, but I feel like we are on a one-way trip to an irreversible fucked up future.
Idiocracy,
And
dude.
I feel like dude, I mean, honestly, even just looking at like climate change, we have had, I think I saw a statistic that said 30 of the hottest days in the last like 100,000 years of the earth or something happened in the last 30 days. Like it's fucked up. Shit's getting fucked up. I mean, the whole shit that happened down in Hawaii recently. They had those huge fires, and I think it was Maui.
Mhm.
And those fires, in part, climate change. And it's fucking it's crazy, man. And I'm starting to feel like the argument about real life having more merit and feeling more natural loses some strength the more our outside world goes to shit. And there's really no conceivable way for us to combat a lot of this except for a few certain things that I can't say online for fear of getting put on a list that I'm sure will never happen anyway. So realistically, as a backup option, it's seeming more valid by the day. And that hurts me to say, because in college we studied things like that in some philosophy courses, and being a computer science major, it was super relevant. And just the landscape has changed and shifted so much that my opinion on it is like totally different now than it used to be, just because of the same reason why I barely even want to have a fucking child put into this world, and it's that everything's going to shit. And if I have a kid, they're going to end up taking the brunt of it and fucking, starving to death or going through an ice age or some shit. And it's like, no, thank you. I think I'd rather just full dive and go spend my time killing goblins and sitting at like a ye old fantasy tavern and, dot hacking it up or SAOing it up than, fucking getting up, going outside and being disappointed again.
I think that should be the start of the episode too. Like, again, where are we going with the future? But yeah, Charlotte, whenever you're ready, give us a few dates. I think we're so as of, I think we're booked for up to September 10th right now.
Dang, we're kind of fancy with it.
Yeah, we're keeping up. I still gotta confirm with a guest for August 27th. So I'll let you know if that's open. But go ahead and shoot me some dates, because I do want to hear your final thoughts on all your survey responses as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And what I could put to you guys is, you three, is maybe we could, when I've kind of got my old interview questions set up, maybe you guys could do it together on VR chat. That would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
I've a good time with that.
I'll be the what's a talk show host that you guys would know? Jerry Springer, but not a dramatic.
Hell yeah.
Ricky Lake, Oprah.
Yeah.
And all that. Jenny Jones.
Yeah, hell yeah. Steve
Dr.
Harvey.
Phil. I'll be Dr. Phil.
Steve Harvey. Yeah, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I like Jerry Springer the most out of all those, though. I want Charlotte to be our Jerry Springer.
I loved Jerry Springer. Like, I watched that show so much.
It is the epitome of like American trash TV.
Exactly. It's the best.
So good.
All right, guys. Feel free to get your socials out there. Custom, go ahead.
Well, I'm FullyCustom Studios in most places. Sometimes FullyCustom Stew, if they won't let me be that long. But yeah, I'm just really looking forward to talking to more of you guys on the interviews and things like that. So if you do want to be a part of it, just sign in the form and we'll have some fun, I'm sure.
Hell yeah.
Juice.
Juice went on everything. I'm kidding. It's not Juice went on everything. I wish it were. Some of these websites are robbing me of my name, and it sucks. So I'm just gonna put my link tree there for you.
Feel that. Kyle.
So true. Yeah, I got you. Hi everybody. You've seen me post in chat, but if you haven't, this is me, and this is also where my link page is. I stream on Twitch, probably too much. I'm on Twitter, too much. So you can always find me in any of those places. In fact, I'll probably be live right after this, doing some Baldur's Gate, or did we want to do maybe Ready or Not? I don't know.
I am 100% down for that.
That's where you can find me.
Ready or Not sounds fire.
As per usual, J-dogging everywhere. I have not had it taken yet, thank God. Praise Jeebus. Starting to stream more on Twitch, so I'll be there mostly, still on that Baldur's Gate grind with Kyle.
Yeah.
I don't see it lifting up anytime soon, but yeah, I'm 100% down for some Ready or Not tonight. If you guys haven't joined the Discord already, go ahead, !Discord in chat. That link will pop up, and we will be posting another round of Charlotte's survey for you guys to peruse and get some ideas on, help her out a little bit. Really excited what she's doing and can't wait to see what you come up with.
Thank you so much for having me on again, guys.
Oh, of course.
Heck yeah.
I can't. We definitely got to continue this. So shoot me some dates. We'll make it happen for sure.
Sounds good.
Until next time, don't forget to check the YouTube, subscribe. We got a few side quest episodes up there. Last one is our Battle Bit episode, which is quite hilarious, if I do say so myself. soon to be a couple Ready or Not episodes. So we'll. I'm bad.
That was a good one. I enjoyed that one.
But yeah, show some support on the YouTube. That really helps us out. If you guys can spread the link for YouTube, we'll have the Spotify link also in the Discord for you guys to share with your friends as well. Anything helps us out. The more people we can reach, the better this is going to be at the end of the day. Hopefully we could get a website. I'm shooting for the end of this month, but I need to align a few more things. So again, keep up on the Discord for that. It'll be updated soon, I hope. I just I don't know. I think I really just need to pull the trigger on it. So it's gonna happen within the next 2 months for sure. I just need to get stuff going. But until next time, XP Share episode 8. I will see you guys next time.
We out.
Bye.
Bye.